Welcome to Part 3 of the Applied Studies Overview. This section will focus on instructional methodologies, including authentic assessment and incorporating evidence-based predictors into students' programs. For this section of the training, we will focus on creating authentic assessments for addressing skills contained within the curriculum map. This information has been adapted from the work of J. McTighe. The ultimate goal of addressing skills within the curriculum map is to provide instruction to students in a way that what they learn will have meaning to them after they leave school. Ideally, the student is able to understand how to use the skills they have been taught and is able to apply them when it is appropriate. Authentic assessments address this by teaching and observing the skill in real-life environments or situations that are set up to emulate real-life scenarios. The first part of this is to determine likely environments that the student will need to utilize the skill. This will be based on the student's work preferences, interests, strengths, etc. It is then up to the instructor, with help from the student when applicable, to break down and tease out the component parts of that skill. It is important to consider all components and requirements of an environment in planning. These may include any motor skills needed to navigate an environment, social skills, self-management skills, and the skills required to complete the task itself. Thinking within the context of the environments where the student would be expected to perform the skill, educators and teams must assess what knowledge and skills the student already possesses. This information can come from existing data, as well as using assessment techniques such as situational assessments that we will talk about later in this webcast. Based on this data, the team will identify areas that will require additional instruction. This is where the team must explore the need for specialized instruction, as well as any accommodations or modifications that may be needed. Teams should address any accommodations and modifications that are currently in place that support the student in receiving instruction. For example, if the student requires a written schedule to transition between classes, the team should note this as being a support and begin planning for how to build independence related to transitions, or plan for how that support can be used in the workplace or post-secondary education. Once skills, strengths, and deficits have been addressed, the student should then receive instruction that will help them develop the needed knowledge and skills. The goal is to shape the student's behavior into closer approximations of the targeted behavior. When deciding how to provide direct instruction, teams should look at the use of evidence-based practices to help ensure the instruction is both efficient and likely to lead to increased independence. Teams should consider supports and instructional methods that have been successful for the student in the past. For example, if the student has demonstrated increased independence using visual supports such as checklists, visual supports, especially checklists, should be considered when teaching new skills. The focus on being able to complete the skills within the curriculum map should always remain on independence. As students get older, teams should consider supports to reduce the reliance on additional human resources. As with any instruction, differentiation may be required to teach new skills or additional applications of skills. When providing instruction on skills within the curriculum map, the focus is on independence. The team should ensure that when the accommodations or modifications are utilized, there is either a plan to fade the use of these supports over time or a plan to modify the type of support being used. This helps to ensure that the student is able to access support after leaving school or is able to create and utilize their own supports as needed. Additionally, teams should consider the environments and conditions in which the accommodation or modification will be used in the community, home, or workplace, and design the supports to fit into these environments. Demonstration and imitation are very powerful teaching tools for many students. When teaching new skills, teachers should demonstrate and explain the new skill in a way that the students will understand. Providing examples of exemplary performances provides the student with the ideal example of what behavior to emulate. Providing specific examples and non-examples of targeted behavior gives students concrete examples of the behaviors they should demonstrate. Rubrics help all instructors share common goals and expectations for students who are working toward mastery of a certain skill. Rubrics are highly customizable and help instructors objectively evaluate performance and identifying areas for improvement. A critical component of teaching students to utilize skills is to create environments and conditions that are similar to the environments in which the student will likely be required to perform the skill. If we want students to order from a menu in a restaurant, we should set up conditions that mirror the conditions in a restaurant. If the student has a goal to use a laundromat, the skill may need to be taught in a mock, or even better, a real laundromat. By teaching skills in realistic environments, we're able to provide instruction that is more likely to generalize to the actual environment where the student will use the skill. Instructing in authentic community environments also provides valuable insight and assessment to predict a student's ability or inability to perform the task in real-life scenarios. In the absence of or in preparation for community instruction, teachers and schools can create environments that mirror the environments in which the student will need to perform. A comprehensive high school is a rich environment for teaching job skills, social skills, and independence. When using authentic assessment, the incorporation of evidence-based predictors into student programs is critical. Evidence-based predictors reflect activities, services, and supports within a student's program that are empirically linked to higher rates of success as students enter adulthood. By incorporating these identified predictors into instruction, we strengthen the effectiveness of instruction by offering a range of instructional opportunities. These predictors can be used to develop new programs or expand existing programs for transition-aged youth. IEP teams can use these predictors to identify and develop goals and service delivery options for students. This slide provides a visual representation of the 20 evidence-based predictors that have been identified by the National Technical Assistance Center for Transition. These predictors have been associated with improved outcomes in the areas of education, employment, and independent living. The predictors are listed down the left column, and the areas of improved results are listed across the top. An X appears next to the predictor for each area in which research demonstrated improved outcomes. The evidence-based predictors include career awareness, community experiences, high school diploma status, goal setting, inclusion in general education, interagency collaboration, occupational courses, paid employment and work experiences, parental expectations, parental involvement, program of study, self-advocacy and self-determination, self-care and independent living, social skills, student support, transition program, travel skills, vocational education and work study, and youth autonomy and decision-making. Of these 20 predictors, research has shown that 5 predictors are associated with improved outcomes across post-secondary education, employment, and independent living. These include inclusion in general education, paid employment and work experiences while in school, parental expectations, self-care and independent living instruction, and student support from a network of people for providing services and resources in multiple environments. IEP teams should consider the use of these activities, services, and supports when developing students' programs. This concludes Part 3 of the Applied Studies Overview. Please continue to Part 4 for additional information regarding planning and reporting student skills.